So Alfonso Cuarón's Roma. A lot of people know Alfonso Cuarón from stuff like Gravity and Children of Men, or if you've never seen any of those films, you probably know him best from Harry Potter and The Prisoner of Azkaban. And if you're familiar with Cuarón's work and stuff like Gravity especially, you know that he likes to do big and long one take shots. Where he does like everything like like Goodfellas type stuff where it's just like the one following camera and over one long shot, which there is a lot of that in Roma, but actually it's kind of interesting because Roma doesn't feel it does feel big in terms of like how it's shot and its scope, but its story the story actually feels pretty simple in terms of how it's set up here. It takes place in the 1970s. In Mexico City, I believe. Yep, in Mexico City. Where essentially we follow this character of Cleo, who's a maid for this Mexican family. And she works well with the kids. She likes them. She doesn't mind working for the family. They have a good relationship. The mother and father, they're not on good terms, but they're on good terms with Cleo. They like her, and the kids like her too. She's a great person, but they have problems with like there's a revolution going on in their society where things seem very very heated out there that that it can be hard to trust the world out there. So of course, Cleo feels a little bit more at home with the family. She feels like she can connect with the kids and stuff like that. But then kind of like tragedy strikes when when she connects with this one boy and she discovers that she's pregnant. And once she breaks this news to her boyfriend, her boyfriend is basically just out of there. He's like, pretty much like when they're on a date and she says that, oh, I think I'm pregnant, he's gone, just out of there. And when she later confronts him, he's like, no, it's not mine. And because he's a martial artist, he gets a little bit violent about it, saying like no, I'm not the father, I'm not dealing with it, goodbye. And so it's basically Cleo trying to deal with her pregnancy while also trying to handle this family, which the family is also going through some tough times with each other. They're having some, like, the kids are kind of fighting with each other. The mom and dad are fighting with each other. They're going under tough times. And it's even tougher for Cleo, and it's even tougher for society at large, because there's a revolution going on in the streets, and people are running around and protesting, and some people are getting shot right in front of them. It's horrifying to them. It's quite the experience. But I love the fact that we always feel focused on Cleo. Cleo is always in focus. We always focus on her. We feel what she feels. We hear what she hears, and see what she sees. And I guess, I mean, I was going to try to find a good way to segue into this, but I love the way that this film is shot. I love the way that they do kind of have like the long takes, but they're not as kind of like elaborate long takes. Like, there's one scene where they're in a furniture store, and they're looking for like a crib for Cleo's baby. And they're looking around, and then they hear some noise outside, and the camera kind of tilts around, and it looks outside, and there's like there's gunshots in the street, and there's all these protesters running. They look down from the window, like on the second floor, and then they pan over, and they see some protesters run inside, trying to hide. And then while we pan with them, we see some people coming after them with guns, and they basically shoot them in the middle of the store there. And then we focus back on Cleo and her reaction and the terror on her face, especially from what happens in that scene, which I don't want to reveal. There's a lot of tragic stuff that happens in this film that I don't want to reveal, just because it's so heartbreaking. And I love the fact that I don't think there's much music in the film too. There's a lot of scenes where we don't rely on music. We just rely on how it's, how the scene is set up, what is the emotion, what's happening with the character. Especially, there's one incredibly tragic moment that happens towards the third act. There's no music at all. It feels like there could have been music, and again, most of it's pretty much all in one take. It feels like very much like a classic film, where they'd hold on a shot for as long as they could to draw out the drama from it. And Cuarón does that here. He does that here beautifully, especially, and a lot of people have talked about this too, the scene at the beach. The scene where both Cleo and the family are together at the beach after they've both gone through huge traumatic experiences. and they basically they break down. They connect in that one scene. That is beautifully played up. Just because like it's kind of all in like one shot for when when it happens by the beach with like the waves and stuff like that, when they've just recovered from another trauma, and when they all just kind of like come together in that one moment when they all connect. It's such a beautiful moment. I just like the way it's shot and the way that we go about following Cleo, which doesn't feel like it's trying to be overbearing. It's just it works so well. You get engaged with it, especially because like you've probably seen in the trailer, they have a bunch of like nothing moments. There's moments where like Cleo's just like just cleaning some clothes, and like the kids will be having like a game of like cops and robbers, and like they'll start bickering with each other. Or there'll be a scene where she's serving up one of the boys breakfast, and the boy starts just having these kind of like imaginary conversations about how like, oh, I was a pilot before I died. It's like, oh really? And these and even just like little moments that seem odd but really say a lot. Like there's one scene where we get to learn about the household, how the car has to park in the entryway, which is very narrow. So like every time that their dad comes home, he has to be very careful about getting the car into the garage because it could like scrape against like the sides of the wall and stuff like that. Little moments like that where we really do get into Cleo's world, and where we get to know enough about this family so that when tragedy strikes, it strikes hard. It really hits you to the core. There were moments in this where I was on the verge of tears, with how much like horrible stuff happens to these characters, and it's great because it doesn't feel like it's trying to go too over the top with the tragedy. It feels very rooted in reality as opposed to melodrama, and it actually plays out in a very, very beautiful way. That that if it doesn't, that for some people I can imagine them seeing it as melodrama, but I think it plays out in a way that's very satisfying towards the end. So for Roma, I can immediately hear from people saying like, oh, it's a foreign film, it's black and white, it's stuff that I'm not gonna understand. I'm telling you, if you can understand, what it's like being a parent or caring for kids, or being in a relationship that doesn't work, I can't see why you wouldn't be able to connect with this, even for being, a foreign film where it's all spoken in Spanish and it's all black and white. And there's lots of like kind of like pillow shots of like water on the ground, or beer bottles on tables and stuff like that. I think people will still be able to connect with that. And also, come on, it's beautifully shot. Like I said, that scene at the beach is amazing. Just all the cinematography is amazing. I love the very human story. I mean, this is, Alfonso Cuaron, he mostly deals in kind of like, fantastical stuff, like, like Children of Men and Gravity and Harry Potter. But here, this is probably his most human film. And the more I thought about it, I kept thinking, because it feels so human and more relatable, I think this might be my favorite Alfonso Cuaron film. And that's saying something, because I do really hold Children of Men up there high. Like those shots in Children of Men were like with, like a lot of people know the car sequence, and then, the going up the apartment, the going up the apartment stairs, one take shots. Those are great. That's probably one of my favorite films ever. But I think Roma kind of beats it. Roma just it feels like it has a lot more to say, and it's such a great human story that's easy to connect with, that I think I can't get out of my mind. I'm still thinking about this film days after seeing it. So yeah, for Roma, 5 out of 5 stars. What can I say? It's my favorite Alfonso Cuarón film at the moment, until he makes his next one, which here's hoping,